Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network just released his third mock draft of the offseason, and to be honest with you, Brooks is actually my favorite draft analyst out of all of the mainstream guys like Mel Kiper, McShay, Jeremiah. Brooks is probably my go-to here. So with that being said, let's not waste time. Let's jump in. Okay, so first up, the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock here. He has them going with Aidan Hutchinson, edge rusher from Michigan. No surprise, right? The thought of Hutchinson and Allen coming off the edge, just destroying quarterbacks, pretty much on a week-to-week basis from both the left side and the right side. It should get Jags fans pumped up. They did bring back Cam Robinson on the franchise tag. The Jags drafted Walker Little last year. High upside player, struggled to get on the field, struggled throughout the course of his college career with injuries, right, staying healthy. But look, if he is good to go, he is healthy, I do like the potential, I do like the upside. And I mean, man, he's a humongous tackle. I believe he's actually 6'7". So, I personally wouldn't rule out tackle. I still feel like Neal should be in play because I don't feel like the franchise tag to Cam Robinson is some long-term fix. And we've talked about this in previous mock drafts here. I don't think Khan, Peterson, and Bulky kicked their feet up after franchise tagging Cam Robinson and said, you know what, we did it, we fixed the offensive line, Trevor's going to have his protection next season. I just don't think it's realistic, right? It's a 1 year investment. It's not a 5 to 10 year investment. That's what selecting an offensive lineman first overall is, and I feel like that's more important right now. But you could also push back and say, where are you going to find a top level pass rusher these days? I mean, they just don't hit the open market. Really, the only place is, you're forcing a trade with another team, but that hardly ever happens. Or you select one at the top of the draft, right? Think of a Joey Bosa, a Nick Bosa, a Myles Garrett. It's rare to strike, Max Crosby's are rare, right? Just that middle round gem, and they just develop and blossom into this elite guy. So look, at the end of the day, Jacksonville cannot go wrong here, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's Hutchinson, whether it's Kayvon Thibodeaux. I think you're going to be getting a real upgrade. So next up at pick number 2, Brooks has the Lions going with Travon Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. And look, I really like Travon. I mean, this guy's explosive. He's athletic. Obviously, everybody's raving about the combine numbers, and rightfully so. I mean, those things are absolutely fantastic. And on the field, right, for Georgia, he has that game-wrecking aura about him, right? The same kind of aura that Khalil Mack had back at Buffalo, the same aura that Von Miller had back at Texas A&M. Just that game-wrecking potential. I mean, when Walker's on the field, like on any given play, it could just be blown up immediately. He almost is like a heat-seeking missile. Like the closer he kind of gets to the ball carrier, the faster he moves. And he does a really good job of getting his hands on the ball carrier or even quarterbacks and just ripping them down, right? He doesn't have to be, just the length is crazy with Walker. He does fit the system here. I think he would come in and give Aaron Glenn not only just versatility on the defensive line, but just a lot of experience playing in a similar style of defense back at Georgia. But at the end of the day, I think if Detroit wants to go with edge here, I would much rather see them go with a Thibodeaux where you're getting that consistent pressure off the edge, or try to trade back and add some more draft assets, whether it's in this class or the following class. I look at Detroit right now, and even though I love the culture, I love the coaching staff, I love some of the young talent, specifically at defensive back, I still feel like there's a lot of holes on this team, whether you want to talk about linebacker, safety, defensive line, edge included. I don't think wide receiver is a complete product, although DJ Chark, I mean, what an absolute bargain that was. I think he's going to be a great player for the Lions next season. So I think if I was Brad Holmes here, I would really look to move back. But at the end of the day, I don't think Walker would come in and hurt the team. He's not, a step down from what they currently have. They moved on from Trey Flowers. So from that aspect, it does make sense. And by the way, it's hard to find a mock draft these days with Walker not going to the Detroit Lions. It's interesting. Is there something there? Right, because a lot of the buzz that I've heard with Detroit is that they are trying to move back. They are fielding calls. But man, a lot of people are mocking Walker to the Lions. Okay, next up, Houston Texans here. Kayvon Thibodeaux, edge rusher from Oregon. I love this. I love this. And yes, I do like Grenard on the defensive line right now. I still think they need that other big body on the outside that can consistently get in the backfield. Thibodeaux consistently got after quarterbacks all 3 years in the Pac-12, right? You look at the upside. There has been, some speculation that he could fall in this draft, but Bucky Brooks is not buying it. He has the Texans going with KT at spot number 3, and I think if I was a Texans fan, I would be thrilled. I really, really would. I mean, physically, I understand the argument of, hey, maybe he needs to add a little bit more size, but at the end of the day, when you watched him back at Oregon, those late night games of the Pac-12, he was so much fun to watch. He walks into Eugene as the #1 high school prospect, right? Tons of hype. So much the expectations were through the roof with Kayvon Thibodeaux, and he does not disappoint. Not at all. I don't think he's going to disappoint at the NFL level either. I think what gets you so excited, especially for, defensive fans out there, is the potential. Like, this guy could be so good. I also love his versatility. He can fit as a stand-up rusher in a 3-4 or more of a hand-in-the-dirt type of guy on a 4-3. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux to the Houston Texans makes a lot of sense. Okay, so next up at pick 4, Brooks has the Jets going with Ahmad Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati, and I understand it. I do look at the pass rushers here, and they're all off the board. Hutchinson not available, KT not available. I think really what it comes down to here, specifically at the 4th pick, it's either between Ahmad Gardner or an offensive lineman, and luckily for the Jets, they have in this scenario everybody here: Evan Neal, Charles Cross, Ike Mekwonu. Every single offensive lineman is available for the New York Jets here, and I think if it comes down to it, the Jets would probably lean into offensive line, but who knows, right? We've seen crazy things happen. We do know that Joe Douglas might want to move back in the draft as well, and I think if it plays out this way, where the Jets have their choice between every single offensive lineman and we still go with Gardner, I would be okay with it if the organization, and I mean, look, I think another thing to kind of throw in here too, Joe Douglas, former offensive lineman, he is coming over from Philadelphia. One of the big reasons why the Eagles won a Super Bowl, why they had so much success, is because that offensive line was absolutely stacked. He has his choice between every single offensive lineman here. Evan Neal is arguably the best player in the draft. The reason why he is not being mocked first overall is not anything to do with him as a prospect. He didn't fail a drug test. He didn't bomb an interview. He didn't put up horrible numbers at the combine or anything like that. It's simply because the Jaguars franchise tag Cam Robinson. Okay, so you can get an absolute bargain here, going with an Evan Neal, maybe going with a Cross or an Ike Mekwonu, getting a future tackle moving forward, maybe even a guy that gives you some versatility at guard. But if Joe Douglas passes on all of those guys, all of that talent to go with the cornerback, that tells me that this organization and this coaching staff feels Ahmad Gardner can be a top 5 cornerback in this league. He could be a future #1 guy. Well, he'd be a #1 guy immediately next season. That's what it would tell me. But, I'm talking about a Jalen Ramsey type of guy, a Stephon Gilmore back with New England type of guy, like lockdown. I'm not going to say Darrelle Revis back with the New York Jets because that's like upper echelon. That's elite status. But you know what I mean, right? Top 5, top 3 cornerback in the league. So I think it's interesting. I would be okay with it. I think if I was on the clock and I was making that decision, I would probably lean towards offensive line, but hey, if you're the New York Jets here, you can't really go wrong. Next up at pick number 5, Brooks has the Giants going with Evan Neal, tackle from Alabama. I mean, I love this. This would be probably the best case scenario for the Giants. We just raved about him, arguably the best player in the draft. What's the Giants' biggest weakness? To me, it's tackle. So you're getting, again, an incredibly talented player at the worst position on the team. Sign me up every day of the week. I mean, there's really not much more that needs to be said. But Evan Neal can play on the left side, the right side. He can play. He can play tackle. He can play guard. Whatever you need him to do, maybe outside of center, Evan Neal can come in and do a really good job at it. Okay, so if you're a Giants fan, you have got to absolutely love this pick. Next up at pick 6, Brooks has the Panthers going with Ike Ekwonu, tackle from NC State. Another slam dunk. Okay, another slam dunk. I don't really know what the direction of Carolina is going to be moving forward. I like a lot of their young defensive pieces, like Burns. I mean, he's probably my favorite guy. But they brought back Jackson at corner, J.C. Horn, top 10 pick last year, Chin at safety. I mean, there is talent here, man. Like, Carolina has a lot of really, really solid pieces. But what's happening at quarterback? What is happening at tackle? According to Bucky Brooks, Ike Ekwonu is happening at tackle, and he is a bully. He is an absolute bully. He's going to make Christian McCaffrey's life easier in the running game. I feel like you could put Ekwonu at left tackle or right tackle, wherever you want. And he's going to bulldoze defensive ends. He's going to make guys look silly. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Becton back at Louisville. Just has that nastiness about him, right? Just that aggressive nature. He just wants to get his hands on defenders and just make them look stupid, right in front of. He just wants to humiliate defenders. And I feel like Carolina needs some of that on the offensive line. Okay, so next up at 7, back to the Giants here. Brooks has him going with Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State. I love this, right? We just talked about the Giants' biggest need being offensive tackle, and they landed Evan Neal with the 5th overall spot. Now they're back here at 7. What's their second biggest need? I would say it's edge. And they're drafting Johnson, an electrifying, high upside, energetic, big time motor type of pass rusher here. I love this. I mean, if you're a Giants fan, you know, to walk away with Evan Neal and Jermaine Johnson, are you kidding me? I also feel like a lot of these mocks, it's almost like these guys are all Giants fans, because these Giants mock drafts have been insane these past couple of weeks. The only pick I don't really like for the Giants is wide receiver. You know, because it was common a little bit, like, you know, maybe a month ago, like it was just wide receiver, like Garrett Wilson and London. It just didn't make sense to me. So I'm happy to see the Giants back to offensive tackle and edge here. If the team trades Bradbury and the Jets pass on Gardner at 4, that could be something to watch. I mean, you could go get a cornerback 1 or a potential cornerback 1 on a rookie deal. We know how much these cornerbacks are getting paid these days, so interesting stuff there. But look, Jermaine Johnson, again, man, when you watch him at Florida State, he was actually a Georgia transfer, just aggressive, violent. When he hits you, it's going to hurt, right? When he gets his hands on you, you ever play, you know, sports like growing up, and there was always that one kid that you just didn't want to get tackled by because you just knew it was going to hurt a lot more than everybody else. That's Jermaine Johnson. And also I like him in space, stopping, you know, like pitch plays, runs to the outside, mobile quarterbacks, being able to hawk guys down like that. It's impressive. It really, really is. Okay, so next up at pick 8, Brooks has the Falcons going with wide receiver from Ohio State, Garrett Wilson. Frankly, my favorite wide receiver in the class. He's explosive, plays bigger than his size, strong hands, fast, really, really good yards after the catch. Fantastic route runner. I feel like he fits in a lot of different offenses. He could play on the outside. He could play on the inside. You could get the ball to him and just watch him work. You could, you know, hit him in the deep parts of the pass game. Just a really, really fun player to watch. And I feel like Atlanta right now, unless you fall in love with a quarterback, whether it's a Malik Willis, a Kenny Pickett, whoever you want, wide receiver is probably going to be the move here. But hey, Kyle Hamilton is still on the board, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, Kyle Hamilton is still on the board. So there is a chance that I could see him going into that Dean Pease style of defense. And, you know, obviously AJ Terrell, tremendous season last year, really cementing himself as a, you know, a lockdown corner. I mean, what a great season for the Falcons fans. I mean, you got to be pumped up. Former first-round pick out of Clemson years ago. Super exciting. You do have that option, that safety, that upside in Kyle Hamilton. It could give Dean Pease just so much, I don't even know what the word would be, like oomph on the back end of the defense, if that makes sense. But I do feel like at the end of the day, the bigger need is wide receiver. But then, of course, you could push back and say you could go target a Chris, you know, maybe a David Bell in round 2, something like that, which is valid. But then also you can make an argument, hey, go get a safety in round 2. Right, Jaquan Brisker or something. So the Falcons could go either way. Either way, it helps the team. Next up at pick 9, Brooks has the Seattle Seahawks going with linebacker Devin Lloyd from Utah to replace Bobby Wagner. I gotta be honest, I did not think of this. I actually really like it. I feel like Seattle right now, after losing Wagner, after losing Russell Wilson, maybe they lose DK Metcalf, we'll see. They're going to need some leadership. They're going to need some culture guys. Devin Lloyd is exactly that. A tackling machine, a high upside type of player. He could get after the passer. He could stop the run. He could drop back in coverage. I really like Devin Lloyd a lot, and he would be coming in to replace Bobby Wagner. Big shoes to fill, I get that, but there's not many guys in this draft. Yeah, not many guys in this draft that I would want replacing Bobby Wagner outside of Devin Lloyd. Okay, so I actually really like this. And last but not least, at pick number 10, Brooks has the Jets going with safety from Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton, a pretty controversial pick here to say the least, right? I've seen both sides of the coin. Some fans really want Hamilton. Some fans don't want anything to do with Kyle Hamilton. For me, I love him, right? Maybe I'm a little biased because he does play my favorite position, but man, he is good. He is so good. I'm not a Notre Dame fan at all, right? And actually, you know, in a lot of weeks, I tend to root against them. But look, Kyle Hamilton, you just can't take your eyes off of 14. I mean, he just makes plays. He's a true, like, center fielder free safety, but he could also come up and, you know, make plays as a strong safety. You could line him up at nickel corner if you really need him to. He has solid speed, really good size, very good instincts, high defensive IQ, versatile, never has to come off the field. You look at the Jets free safety room right now, it's LaMarcus Joyner. You know, it's Pinnock. You know, I do like Pinnock, his upside at safety, and they obviously moved his position late into the season because of injuries. But Kyle Hamilton is just on a completely different level. Whitehead at strong safety, Hamilton at free safety, Ahmad Gardner at corner, DJ Reed on the other side, a completely revamped Jets defense. Okay, at least that's what Bucky Brooks is suggesting here. So I gotta say, I understand it, right? I definitely understand it because the Jets had the worst defense in football last year. That's not an over-exaggeration. Literally dead last. Horrible. Right? It was not fun to watch at all. So I'm looking at these two picks, both Ahmad Gardner and Kyle Hamilton. As much as I would love it, I do think it would create two question marks. What's happening at wide receiver 1? Is there a guy in round 2 that we like? Maybe it's, yeah, I mean, there's so many different options, whether it's a Dotson, a Chris Olave, if he falls, David Bell, whoever it may be. Do we target wide receiver 1 in round 2? And what's happening at offensive line? This tells me that the Jets feel comfortable with both Becton and Fant starting at tackle next season. Or, right, the Jets like somebody in round 2, round 3, something like that. But at the end of the day, the Jets defense will completely be revitalized with Kyle Hamilton and Ahmad Gardner. I think I would really like that. But I think for me, if it came down to it, at pick number 4, if Thibodeau's off the board, if Hutchinson is off the board, I would really look at offensive line there, and then go back at pick number 10 and analyze your options at wide receiver and defensive back. That's kind of my plan. That's kind of my blueprint, how I'm feeling right now. I know there's still some time before the NFL draft, but I really feel good about that. At 4, defensive line or offensive line. At pick 10, wide receiver or defensive back, depending on what happens at pick number 4 and how the board kind of falls. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, go Jets.